So a quick and easy way to add a little bit of color bloom that works really well when you have artwork that is mostly flat, such as hand-drawn artwork without a lot of shading, is to add an adjustment layer. And on this adjustment layer, we are going to use blur, and Fastbox blur works pretty good. Now with this, I'm just going to blur it up. Well, not 9, because we can see that's probably a little more than I want. I'm going to go with 5. And I'm going to take my iterations and bump that up, because that makes it look a little bit better, in my opinion. So I'm going to aim for, alright, fine, it won't let me drag, so I'll just aim for 15. So I'll do 5 and 15. At this point, we're looking and going, wow, that's pretty bad. Look at the edge pixels. We can see where they're blurring out. If I click the box, repeat edge pixels, it takes care of that. Next, what I want to do is to change my blending mode here. So we can use a number of them. So add, we can see how it gives a little bit of that bloom effect in the colors, a little glow around the edges. It's pretty strong. In this case, I'm first going to choose screen, because now if we, okay, that's kind of fun. If we see overlay, we can get some of that bloom. It's immediately darker. We can go before, after, a little more hyper-saturated, kind of fun. But I'm going to start out and just choose screen for my adjustment layer. Then I'm going to, I want to name it, just so it's easier to see what's going on. I didn't mean to jump into it as a separate window. Now I'm going to duplicate that. Whoa, that's really bright. And then we'll just change it to overlay. So combining the two gives us a pretty nice effect. The next thing that I want to do is to create, and I'm going to rename this one from screen to overlay, just so we know which is doing which. I'm going to create another adjustment layer. And on this adjustment layer, we'll name this adjustment layer, this is going to be set to levels. And this time, when I go into my color correction, I will go down and choose levels. What I want to do is to darken it back up. So what I'm trying to do is get my colors a little closer to what we see there, but with the bloom effect. So pull the dark over, now I can pull my mid over. So we can see how it's starting to add a little bit of richness into it. Colors are fairly saturated with that. And what we could do if we wanted to is look under our hue saturation, and this time I could take my master saturation and I could pull it back a little bit if I don't want things to be too electric. So this is now a levels and saturation layer, so I could rename it. But I think it gets the point across how we can take flat artwork and do a little bit of work on it, and it adds some richness. Now, we can always go through and decide on individual adjustment layers. If I pull up the opacity for that layer, I can certainly pull it down a little bit if I feel that the opacity of this effect is a little too strong, to make it just a little bit less, and so we can see before, after. So we're not really changing anything. We're not really doing any dramatic modification, but what we are doing is just adding a little bit of texture to it. So now, if I go through, we can see during the RAM preview, going to stop the RAM preview, I'll hit shorten my work area, so now we can see how that effect looks when it's being animated. And I'm going to even go one frame in, just so we don't have to watch that little bad opening frame, that it show up quite right. So there you have it, where we can use these different adjustment layers, their blending modes, and then applying the simple blur effect onto it, and then fixing our color using a little bit of hue saturation and levels.